Hello, lovely learners. Welcome back to A Life Learned. So, unexpectedly as it was, I actually got a response the day after my last video, last Monday, from the same person, the Social Assistance Program Policy Branch Manager in Toronto. Basically, the person that the minister and the Ontario Premier pawned me off to because they felt like it wasn't their issue to deal with. So anyway, this is the person that's been giving me the answers that at this point I now am like relatively certain I have enough evidence based on the things he said to definitively say the chart that they use to set social assistance allowances is set entirely arbitrarily. And specifically, I feel like that claim is now without a doubt accurate because the last thing he said was that the current party, the current people in bureaucracy running things, have no idea what was originally used as a metric or a measure to set the original numbers for social assistance, either back in 97 or before that. He just specifically said that each year, each new legislation, each change that they make, they just base it on the last numbers that were there. So they don't know why we're in poverty. We just are, because that's how it was set in the past, and they base everything on the past numbers, because that makes sense. And for those who may be aware, the Minister of Community, Children and Social Services, or Children, Community and Social Services anyway, he's been given advice, or anyone in his position has been given advice over the last like 15-20 years to increase social assistance amounts, specifically from the from various different groups such as ACORN, as well as from the Social Assistance Research Commission. But all of this is just taken as advice, advisory or whatever. He can just be like, oh yeah, that's nice, I don't care. And which is exactly what he's done ultimately, because there's been no significant change. So with this, I realize that now, like, my next step is like, okay, so how do I take the step to approach change now that I have this evidence? So I started calling around because it was suggested to me that by making phone calls, you'll probably make more progress because they treat you like an actual person that they're talking to, rather than like with letters and mail and emails, they can kind of pawn you off more because you're just letters on a screen. So I called my MPP, and his representative called me back. We did a little bit of phone tag for a bit, but he gave me a whole bunch of advice on next steps. He did explain basically that what I'm looking at is not so much something that would be as like proposing an amendment to an act, but very specifically an actual like administrative change to the whole system, which would be like a lot more significant and take a lot more work. And so he wasn't saying don't do it, just you know, it's bigger than I thought it was. But he did say like that I could very well approach it on a municipality level first, or at some point, because basically the way the system works is that the legislation is sort of like a suggestion, an outline on how things are to be done, but then the municipalities are the ones who are given the actual power to decide how to actually delegate the funds. So I can technically make a proposal to my council, through my council member, to how do you say, acknowledge the case of discrimination and to make change, at least within the Middlesex area, which is interesting. I just feel like I slightly shot myself in the foot in terms of trying to get that moving forward quickly, because just last week I brought her into a meeting with ACORN to discuss the landlord licensing thing that ACORN's trying to do, which I'm in full promotion of. It's just now that I've proposed that to her so recently, I feel like if I jump on her with with this kind of matter that I'm trying to pursue, she might feel a bit annoyed at being presented so many things, and you know, obviously she's only one person, so she's already got stuff on her plate. So I'm thinking to wait till later next week or the week after before sending her my proposal for this. She also explained that the current council in London is majority conservative, much like the province, and so getting something like this moved forward, even if she's in full promotion of it, is going to be tricky because they are not in the mindset to give a shit about the poor. But in that case, I'm currently looking at now pursuing it as a discrimination case, at least on the disability side. I'm still trying to figure out how to pursue it on the OW, like welfare side. But the representative of the MPP basically said it's a bit too much of a stretch to say that it's a violation of our rights via being cruel, putting us in poverty. Unfortunately, I mean, we all agree that's true, but he says it's too much of a stretch to argue in court. But something he pointed out is that the current structure of ODSP, which is basically you get this set amount of $11.69, or if you can work at all and earn any kind of income within our economic system, then you deserve to have more. And that in itself is discrimination. That in itself is ableism. And he pointed that out. And so I'm like, oh, okay, so that's an approach I can take with it. So I'm not sure, like, I'm still needing to get legal advice. I tried my local legal aid, but they, I guess because of COVID and various other things, they're just not in the position to give me just advice. They only work with people who like have cases that need to be dealt with. So I'm exploring options for just free legal advice. If you guys have any recommendations on numbers I can call or people I can email for that, please share in the comments. Someone also suggested in my last video that I could try like campaigns such as like change.org to gather signatures to kind of push this forward, because one of the things that forces conservatives to make change even if they don't want to is activism. If there is an excessive amount of voices going towards a certain issue, if they ignore it, they're risking not getting voted in next time, basically. So on the fear of the public opinion and votes, that's how you can kind of push them to do things that they'd otherwise not agree with or not like or not promote. So I'm not sure if I'll be updating next weekend, because it looks like I have a lot more work ahead of me to really get this continuing forward. But at the very least, I can say that I have definitive evidence now. I just need to figure out how to present it forward that says that social assistance amounts are set arbitrarily, which, like, that's just, it seems unjust in itself. And furthermore, the structure of ODSP is designed in a very discriminatory, ableist fashion. So with those 2 points, I'm going to basically, again, in a week or two, I'm going to pursue my city councilor and see if she will present it to the council and maybe get something going in the Middlesex area where I live. And otherwise, I was provided hard to find, but access to contact information for like various different representatives within the minister's office. So it was suggested that I start lighting fires under their seats kind of thing and start presenting to them that I'm pursuing this issue, and it would be in their best interest to consider it. And so I think I'm hoping that when I find someone who will help me pursue it as a discriminatory matter, I can then start telling these representatives, like the executive assistant or the policy advisor for the minister, like, so this is discrimination. This is proven to be unsupported. What do you plan on doing about it? Or should I just start going to the media and start going to, you know, social justice groups and stuff like that? By the way, I haven't really heard back at all from anyone in the media. The representative of the MPP pointed out to me, like, of course you haven't, because you're talking about poverty and people don't care about the poor. And I'm laughing because being poor and also working in social assistance, I'm kind of surrounded by people who do care, but it's a bubble, right? It's this very insulated set of people in society who care. And it was certainly when we're in a situation where the council's majority conservative and the provincial government is conservative, it's easy to argue that the media is looking at what people want to see, and they're thinking not poor, not the poor. At least maybe not unless it's a super extreme of homelessness. So that's that. I haven't got any response from the media, but I'm hoping that as I get the issue hotter and hotter with the discrimination factor and everything else, that eventually I will start getting some interest. I also need to find like uh, journalists and newscast people who specifically write about social justice issues. Tricky, by the way. Not impossible. It's just like not just anyone will be interested in the story. You need to find people who pursue those kinds of stories. You know what I mean? So work in progress. Did make a little bit of progress this week. I have. I feel like I have like a new direction or continuance of the direction I'm going. I'm not in a stalemate. It's just also going to be a lot of work and a lot of phone calls. And if anybody's got anxiety, then they know that phone calls are not always fun. And it's like I'm capable of them because I worked in a call center, so I can do it, but I sweat buckets and the whole time I'm like, are we done yet? Are we done yet? I don't want to talk. So it's going to take a little time. Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'll have an update next week, but that's what's going on right now. That's where I'm chasing it. Hopefully we'll have some progress in a few weeks. If you guys have any suggestions again on places I can get legal advice, or other ways that I can pursue this and get activism on the issue, because the more activism, the more they'll listen, by all means, please do share down in the comments. And otherwise, as always, do join me again next week or sometime soon where I try again to share a little something I've learned or experienced in life.